He's better when he comes in relief. He's not great when he's a starting quarterback. Example, Thursday night when they played the Ravens, when they lost 40-0. But at the end of the day, hopefully the Dolphins will get it together because they still have a chance, a small outside chance of the playoffs. The Buccaneers, too. Even without Jameis Winston at the moment, who's going through his own personal picadillos that I'm not going to mention right now. But to the Buccaneers, good luck. The Patriots and the Raiders played each other in Mexico City, and Tom Brady basically made salsa out of the Raiders with 3 big touchdowns on the day, and Gostkowski getting a 62-yard field goal in the thin air that is the Estadio Azteca. With over 77,000 fans there, the Raiders, talk about being the proverbial pumpkin. The only offense they had was a touchdown in the fourth quarter from Derek Carr to Amari Cooper when they were trailing by 30 points. Garbage time. Other than that, Tom Brady really had a great performance. Patriots are on their way to another Super Bowl year, and they win that game 33-8. And I love the fact that the NFL is exploring other countries and cities to play the game. I like the whole international flair. In London, hoping one day maybe in Paris we'll see football played there. Rome, Germany, Berlin, or any other city. I want to see the NFL expand into other countries. I like that they do this, bringing the game of American football to a different audience and giving them the chance to explore a different culture in this world. Just like we like to see other countries with their culture infused with us, we want to do the same for the other countries in this world. I think it's just great, and the NFL is going to be doing games in Mexico till 2021, so kudos to the NFL. Now, the final game of Week 11, the Washington Redskins go into the Big Easy, the Bon Temps Roulette New Orleans Saints. Well, the good times did roll for the Saints. They're down 15 points to the Redskins. And what does Drew Brees do? What he does best. On the last 2 possessions of the fourth quarter, he throws a nice touchdown pass to Josh Hill, 253. And my favorite, the 18-yard game-tying touchdown to Alvin Kamara, in which Kamara bobbles the ball, not once, not twice, but 3 times with great concentration into the middle of the end zone to tie the game and force overtime. Then Mark Ingram, who had a 131-yard rushing performance, caps it off with 2 big runs on the Saints' ensuing possession overtime. A 20 and 31-yard run, setting up Will Lutz for the game-winning 28-yard field goal. They win 34-31. The Saints have now won 8 games after losing their first 2. First time in NFL history that has been done, while the Washington Redskins are in a fight for survival to try and get that wild card spot. And that is all the games of Week 11 of this 2017 season. Now, let's go into Week 12, the upcoming matchups season, starting on Thanksgiving Day. So while you're waiting for the food to happen, you can kill your time and watch some great games. Starting with the first one, 12:30, Minnesota Vikings, Detroit Lions. Detroit's coming up 2 games in a row, while the Vikings are on a nice winning streak themselves. They're both fighting for the NFC North Championship. If I had to pick my factor in this game, look for the Detroit offense going against that Vikings defense, especially at the line of scrimmage. If Everson Griffin can get into the backfield and knock Sam Bradford off his feet, prevent him from making any big plays, that's it. That's a whole ball of wax for Detroit, and they don't win this game, which I think is going to happen. I really believe that the secondary is going to really infuriate Stafford and cover his go-to receivers like Jones and Tate and Ebron. I don't think they're going to have a big day. I think the Vikings are going to come off with a big victory. I like them in this game. Now, the next game right here on Sunday, you got the Dallas Cowboys being visited by the ghost of Christmas present, the LA Chargers. The LA Chargers bring the dangerous, fearsome twosome on that defense, Melvin Ingram and Joey Bosa, to try and knock out Dak Prescott, which could very well happen. No, who knows if Tyron Smith will recover from that groin injury in time for Thursday. And I don't know if Sean Lee will be able to play this week. It still remains to be seen. And if they're not able to go, especially, as I mentioned, with that suspect secondary for the Cowboys, Phil Rivers could have a huge day with Austin Eckler, who's been his go-to receiver these last couple of weeks. I like the Dallas Cowboys in this one simply because they're playing Thanksgiving. They're at home. And I think with all the losses they've had, they really don't want to have the crowd going home frustrated on the biggest day of the calendar year for them. I think Dak Prescott is going to run heavily in this game. Look for him to have 80 yards on the ground, and as well as Alfred Morris. I like the Cowboys. Now, the next game right here, talk about fellow NFC North teams, the East teams. You got the New York Giants visiting the Washington Redskins. In this particular contest right here, Samaje Perine now is going to have to be the go-to running back now that Chris Thompson's done for the year. That unfortunate fractured tibia he suffered in the Saints game. So the Giants are going to have to key on him defensively if they want to even stop the Redskins from doing anything offensively. But here's the thing, I don't think that's going to happen. The Giants had a fluke win against Kansas City. I think they're a one-trick pony to me. They're not going to be able to do what they did last week offensively. I got the Redskins winning this one. Now, the next game coming up here, you got the New York Jets at home against the Carolina Panthers. Both teams coming off the bye week. Both teams going in completely different directions. The Panthers on the winning side, the Jets on the losing one. Now, what is it that the Jets need to do to win this game? You got to stop Cam Newton. You got to frustrate him at the line of scrimmage and not allow him to run big plays. You got to be able to stop Jonathan Stewart from having another game and frustrate Devin Funchess into not getting any easy openings. So the defense really has to do a great job in making Cam Newton make mistakes, which he's been prone to do on the year. If the Jets can do that, they win. But I'm talking about the Jets right here, where they had a chance to win against Tampa, and they're less of a team than Carolina, and they couldn't do it. What makes fans think, or me think, that the Jets can do that against Cam Newton and the Carolina Panthers? That's why, and therefore, I'm going with the Carolina Panthers. Look for them to win this game by 2 touchdowns. Next game right here, the Saints looking to extend their winning streak, heading into the City of Angels, taking on the LA Rams at the Coliseum. I love the story of both these teams, the turnarounds that they've had. The Saints, for the last 3 years, were 7-9 record teams, while the Rams were the proverbial joke. A huge, embarrassing joke with Jared Goff, who had more interceptions than touchdowns. Now this year, it's the complete opposite. And I love the fact that the Rams upgraded their offensive line. They switched from a 4-3 to a base 3-4 defense with Wade Phillips under the defense coordinator position. Everything has been good for the Rams except this past week, where they had 7 points. It was the first time in weeks in which the Rams didn't score that much. As for the Saints, I like the fact that Drew Brees doesn't have to throw the ball 40-45 times, and he's got a great combo at running back with Alvin Kamara and Mark Ingram, who in the last few weeks have been the catalyst for their offense moving forward. And their defense has done even better than expected. And in this particular game, even in LA with the time change, I still like the Saints to win this with Mark Ingram running the ball. If the Rams want to win, Todd Gurley's got to run more than 11 times for 17 net yards. But I don't see that happening. All right, the Kansas City Chiefs at Arrowhead Stadium being visited by the Buffalo Bills. The Bills have given up 134 points the last 3 games combined in this losing streak, while the Chiefs have lost 4 out of their last 5. Something has to give. Another drink break. Something has to give. And in this game right here, I think the giving will be Kareem Hunt with 100 yards on the ground. It'll be his best performance we've seen in weeks. 2 touchdowns, and look for Alex Smith to not make as many mistakes. Even with Tyrod Taylor starting at quarterback over Nathan Peterman, who last week Taylor got a few points in garbage time in the second half. Still didn't matter. Still lost to the Chargers last week, 54-24. I do not see the Bills doing any better. They need a changing quarterback. Sean McDermott, this is going to be the 18th year in which the Bills missed the playoffs. Still longest current drought in the NFL. Speaking of droughts, the Denver Broncos heading to face their fellow AFC West rivals, the Oakland Raiders, at the Black Hole. That is the Coliseum in Oakland County. Broncos go into the Coliseum with a 6-game losing streak, the longest in 27 years. And the reason that's happening is because they cannot score in the red zone. They either turn the ball over or go for field goals instead of trying to try to convert touchdowns. And this week they're going Paxton Lynch. 3 quarterbacks in the last 7 weeks now that they've had to rely on. Samian turns the ball over and now is hurt. Brock Osweiler is no better, and I don't know why they re-signed him. And Paxton Lynch now is going to have to man the helm against this team. A Raiders team that is just PO'd with the performances they've had last week in Mexico against New England. I think they're going to take that frustration and hand it down the Broncos' throat. I don't see the Broncos winning this at all. It's going to be more of the same and nothing better. Give me the Oakland Raiders to win this particular contest. The Houston Texans, Tom Savage, going into Baltimore to take on those Ravens. The Ravens this is part of that soft schedule that they could use their advantage and get into the postseason for the first time in 3 years. And it starts this week. They're one of the league leaders with 16 interceptions on the year. And it's going to be plenty more against Tom Savage. Tom was lucky against Arizona last week because that defense without Tyvon Branch last week was terrible. They're going up against a much better defense, Houston, than they did last week. When you got guys like Jim Smith, Eric Weddle, Brandon Carr, and the rookie Marlon Humphrey contributing, I see 4 turnovers right here for Savage. Give me the Baltimore Ravens to win this contest. Sunday Night Football, the Green Bay Packers and the Pittsburgh Steelers. This was the Super Bowl 45 match in which the Packers won with Aaron Rodgers under center in Dallas. First Super Bowl the Packers had since the early 90s with Brett Favre. It was their 5th franchise Super Bowl at the time. Actually, their 4th. My mistake. Their 4th. Now, in this particular game, the Packers have Brett Hundley under center. He is less of a quarterback than Aaron Rodgers. He can't do the same things that Aaron Rodgers. He's lucky he's got Devontae Adams, who had 126 yards. But the sad, pitiful part about their game last week, they outgained Baltimore and still lost because they turned the ball over. And you're going up against an opportunistic defense like the Steelers. I do not see the Steelers letting up in this game. Mike Tomlin is going to have an aggressive approach, especially offensively. Even with Marcus Gilbert out on the offensive line for the Steelers, they're still going to be able to run the ball with Le'Veon Bell. I got to go with Pittsburgh in this one. I can, in good conscience, pick the Green Bay Packers. Chicago Bears heading to the city of brotherly love to take on the Philadelphia Eagles. Eagles on an 8-game winning streak, tied with the Saints for the longest current run, and the best record in the NFL at 9-1 in the year. And Carson Wentz in the offense is behind it. Look for him to throw another 3 bombs, 2 of them to Nelson Aguilar, and I'm thinking 1 to Zach Ertz. And you're going to have plenty of that monster 4-man running back situation they got going. Probably 150 yards on the ground overall. I just cannot see the Bears defense overcoming those odds. I like the Eagles in this one. Tampa Bay going up against their fellow NFC South rivals, the Atlanta Falcons, at the Mercedes-Benz Dome, which still has Chick-fil-A that doesn't open on Sundays. Please, Chick-fil-A, reconsider opening on Sundays. You have such good chicken and curly fries. But I know they won't. Anyway, in this particular game right here, Atlanta's going to win. Why? Matt Ryan is 10 times the quarterback, whoever will be on the other side, whether it's Ryan Fitzpatrick or Jameis Winston for Tampa, it doesn't matter. Matt Ryan is a 10 times better quarterback than either of those guys. And Julio Jones is going up against a suspect secondary with the Buccaneers, and he's going to have a field day. Look for him to have nearly 200 yards receiving, and Tevin Coleman being able to man the helm at running back. I like the Falcons in this one. The Miami Dolphins visiting the New England Patriots, an AFC East showdown in the very cold atmosphere of Gillette Stadium. Well, They're going to get chowded, all right, the Dolphins. They're going to get chowded, clammed, smacked all around the field. I know it's not nice to say it like that. Believe me, I want the Dolphins to win. But when it looks like a duck and talks like a duck, it's pretty much a duck. And that's what the Dolphins have been, that proverbial duck these last 4 games. If they want to win this week, they're going to have to disrupt Tom Brady, make sure his receivers like Gronk can't get anything going, stifle the running game, basically get in Tom Brady's grill and knock him down a few times, which is easier said than done, especially when he rolls to his right. Classic Tom Brady. And offensively, if Matt Moore is going to be the starter, which I probably think he will be, he's going to have to get Kenny Stills involved at secondary. A defense that has given up less than 20 points in the last 6 games. How are you going to be able to accomplish that? To get more than 20 points against this stalwart New England offense? There's no way. I see the Patriots winning this through and through. Tom Brady's going to have a masterful performance. The Miami Dolphins it's just going to be more of the same. And this could be the swan song of Adam Gase's head coaching years with the Dolphins. The Jacksonville Jaguars go into the desert to take on the Arizona Cardinals. Calais Campbell, the former defensive end for those Arizona Cardinals, leading his team with over 10 sacks for the Jaguars, gets to go up against his former team and show them why you should have never let him go. Well, also the Cardinals couldn't afford to retain his services. And with him, Yannick Ngakoue and Dante Fowler and Telvin Smith and that Saxonville defense that has 35 sacks on the year to lead the NFL and gives up the least amount of total points altogether. That's why Jaguars going to win, just because of the defense. Honestly, Blake Bortles is not a quarterback that you can rely on all the time. He's inconsistent, hit and miss. And Leonard Fournette hasn't scored a rushing touchdown in the last 2 weeks. I would like to see more of him doing that. But I think Jacksonville still wins because they're going up against an Arizona team that has Blaine Gabbert, the former Jaguars quarterback, under center for the Cardinals. And AP is also hit and miss as the running back there. Tennessee Titans, Indianapolis Colts, AFC South rivalry matchup in Indy. I would love to go to Indianapolis at some point. You know, my friend Shane Dior, he's a big Colts fan, huge Colts fan. You know, and I never met a Colt fan before until I met him. And you could see the passion that he has for the Colts and how much he likes the Colts. And he even has been to Indianapolis for several games, you know, with Paulina, a very good friend of mine, his girlfriend, and very good people that I know. And they enjoyed it. And I love that. I love that, you know, that passion, that love, you know, that fans have, especially Shane for his Colts. And this year has not been a love fest for the Colts. It's been terrible, especially with Andrew Luck still recovering from that shoulder injury or surgery he had in January, has not come back. Jacoby Brissett doing all he can, but when you have a terrible offensive line that can't protect you, when you have a running game that gets stifled at the line of scrimmage and can get you plays here and there, when you have you want to talk about really bad secondary, they are one of the worst against the pass. The absolute worst. 31st in the league against the pass. And on top of that, it's just not been a bowl of cherries, you know, for the Colts this year. But they're going up against the Titans this year in their home, in their backyard, and I think the Colts will just have enough to pull it off. Just enough. I think it's going to come down to a Vinatieri field goal, who, thank goodness, he's still there. And Brissett, you know, I have to give him a lot of credit, especially, you know, those big touchdown plays he 60-yard plays he had before the bye. Sorry. I like the Colts winning this one. So give me the Indianapolis Colts just because of Vinatieri field goals. Now, a rivalry, NFC West, Seahawks, 49ers. Last time they played each other, this was a Seahawks victory, but not so many points. The 49ers are not a terrible team. Even though, yes, their record is not great, but if you look at 5 of their games, they lost by a combined 15 points. So there were games that they could have easily won that they unfortunately let go. So they weren't creamed in those games. There were other games in which, yes, the 49ers were god-awful to say the least, but there were some games in which they were competitive in, and they beat the Giants before they went on their bye week. And they're going up against a Seahawks team that's not only missing Richard Sherman, but also now will be missing Cam Chancellor in that Legion of Boom secondary. So whoever's the starter, whether it's Jimmy Garoppolo or C.J. Beathard, can take advantage of this situation and get some big touchdowns. That's why I got the 49ers winning this game. Seahawks, the only way they win this game is if their defense, without the services of those two gentlemen, can get into the quarterback's face, supplant him at the line of scrimmage, get some major hits, be able to control the receivers, especially Garrett Chelik and some of the other players, and make sure that Carlos Hyde can't run the ball. Now, the final game, the Battle of Ohio in the AFC North, those pitiful Cleveland Browns visiting the Cincinnati Bengals. My oh, Manischewitz. This is not even a game that I even like to discuss long, but of course, I want to give them their just due in some sense of that word. The Cincinnati Bengals coming off a skin of their teeth victory against Denver, and the Browns, well, are just awful or horrible. I think there's so many adjectives I could use that it's kind of eluding me right now, but it's not positive. It's completely, utterly negative to think of the Cleveland Browns. And the situation is going to get even worse for Hugh Jackson. He's 1-25 in his 2 years. Make him 1-26. Marvin Lewis's team is going to come out. Joe Mixon's going to have a 2-touchdown performance on the ground because anybody can run the football in Cleveland. And, folks, if Cleveland has a lead, don't expect it to last long because they find ways to screw that up. They always do. You look at the game against Minnesota when they led 16-15 and gave up 18 unanswered points. You look at the Jets game, and you look at the game against Detroit. There's so many examples of when the Browns have had a lead and they've let it go, and they will again this week. Deshaun Kaiser will turn the ball over as he usually does, if it's still him under center or somebody else. That organization needs to be reshaped. I want a new owner. Jimmy Haslam has been a terrible owner since he bought the Browns for $1 billion, which honestly, if you got $1 billion, I think there are other things you can do a lot better than spending it on the Cleveland Browns. You know, funding, building hospitals, roads, helping poor people, giving internet to those in areas where they don't have internet. I don't know, there are other worthwhile causes and charities that you can donate that money to, not the Cleveland Browns. They are a sad case, a sad franchise, and it's going to get even worse, and they're going to hemorrhage more and more every single week. The Bengals, though, they're in a fight for survival. Marvin Lewis should probably see a pink slip on New Year's Eve. That is all the games of Week 12 of this season. Now, with the 7 minutes to go, we are going to some college football. Week 13, rivalry week. This is the last week of the regular season for most of the college football teams. This is the very week we'll find out which teams will be playing in those pivotal conference championships. For instance, who will be playing the Georgia Bulldogs in the SEC title game next week in the first Saturday in December? Will it be the Alabama Crimson Tide, 11-0, or the Auburn Tigers at 10-1? The winner of that matchup will determine who plays Georgia at the Mercedes-Benz Superdome. And I'm going to go with the Crimson Tide, of course. Jalen Hurts is just great on the ground, and you got to like their receiver, too, who's going to probably Calvin Ridley, who's going to be a first-round draft pick. The Ole Miss Rebels and Mississippi State Bulldogs in their classic battle are going to be playing on Thanksgiving night. You got a great All-American Conference game on Saturday between the South Florida Bulls with Mark Strong manning the helm against the Central Florida Knights, 15th in the country in the college football playoff rankings. The Battle of Virginia between the Hokies and the Cavaliers. The Sunshine State clash between the Seminoles of Florida State and the Gators of Florida. The Georgia Tech rivalry in Georgia Tech. If you're ever in the Atlanta area, folks, get yourselves down to the Varsity. Great hot dog stand where they always say, what do you have, what do you have, what do you have? Always fun. It's not that far from the Yellow Jackets, so get a dog and then go see a good game. And then we got Arizona State, the Palmetto Classic between the Clemson Tigers, who are fighting for that spot in the playoffs. against the defending champions, against the South Carolina Gamecocks, 24th in the playoff rankings. The classic Notre Dame-Stanford rivalry in North Florida, in Northern Cali. The Battle of Washington State and Washington, which will determine who will face USC for the Pac-12 championship. And then finally, the greatest rivalry in all of college football, the annual Michigan-Ohio State game that stretches so many years. And I got a boss eating too, Joanne, who is a big Ohio State Buckeye fan, who will be watching this game attentively, looking to see her Buckeyes defeat those Wolverines. It's going to be a tough one. Don't get me wrong. The Michigan defense can come on strong, but I'll be honest, Ohio State, I think, will pull off the victory in this one, could possibly sneak in to the top 4 with the next rankings and get into that Big Ten. I think they'll be in the Big Ten championship for next week. And you got Minnesota and Wisconsin, for Paul Bunyan's axe. So all these great rivalries, all these great games for college football is just outstanding. I love this week. I cannot wait to see what takes place. But Michigan and Ohio State is probably by far my favorite. You got to respect both programs and the history, the rich history, especially if you are in Ann Arbor and you're at the Big House, or if you're in Columbus, Ohio at the Horseshoe. Both stadiums are just beautiful to look at and be in. So if you're in the north area by the Great Lakes and you're going to both those stadiums, have some fun. Good burger place in Ann Arbor that makes monster cheeseburgers. And if you're in Ohio State, there's a great German restaurant where they have the Autobahn and all the Bavarian cream puffs you can have. It's just, food and football. That's what I love about Thanksgiving. Of course, I'll mention family and friends and all the things that we're thankful for. Well, folks, thank you so much for letting me come into your living rooms every week discussing football and all the things that are involved in the NFL and college football and all the news. It's a pleasure. I love doing this every week. And if you want to be next to me on this show on Fridays, come join me. I always could use another person to debate with and discuss all the vital games and news that's out there in the National Football League and college football. So for all the hardworking men and women at CTV, for Eileen and Mr. Terry Converse that behind the booth, for my family, my friends, and all my loved ones, thank you for watching this week's episode of the Blitz Zone. I'll see you next week here on CTV. Good night, Staten Island, and peace.
Get all the news and controversy of the NFL right here on the Blitz Zone with your hosts, Eric Rosen and Jamie Hickson, as they discuss the hot topics concerning your favorite players and team, the winners, the losers, the big play